Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Elon talks about Tesla having infinite demand, and Tesla lower prices, then there is so much more demand. But can't you say this about anything? If Ferrari was $30,000, wouldn't there be a lot more demand for them too? Sure. But what about a Toyota? What if it was $10,000? Would there be even more demand? Well, quite possibly, but not by the same extent. You see, if a Toyota was $10,000 and you could afford a $50,000 car, would that mean that you can now just buy 5 Toyotas and have 5 times more cars? Is that likely? Well, probably not. You can only drive one car at a time. And even if Toyota was that cheap, consumers are willing to pay more for certain items because they see value in them. The consumer with a $50,000 budget is more likely to buy a $50,000 car, even if Toyota suddenly dropped their price from perhaps $25,000 to $10,000 and seemed like exceptional value. But the consumer is willing to pay that much more because they want a better driving experience. They want a more comfortable seat, a better stereo. They value their lives and like feeling safer. They want people to know they can afford a $50,000 car as a status symbol and a plethora of other features you can get from a more expensive car. The thing is though, what happens when a Tesla goes from $70,000 down to about $50,000? Does the consumer who had a budget of $70,000 for a car look for something else for $70,000? Well, what else would there be? Presumably they want an electric car. Now, I'm obviously referring to the price drop we saw with the Model Y in the US. So what do they buy? For starters, there aren't really many other $70,000 electric vehicles. I guess the options are Ford Mach-E and perhaps a Cadillac Lyriq when they're out. But why would a consumer buy these cars? In this case, the Tesla is still vastly superior. It offers more range, higher performance, much more safety, the best car on the planet, the best FSD or ADAS compared to any other vehicle, and a ton of other features that no other car can offer. What am I saying then? Well, when Tesla dropped their prices from $70,000 to $50,000, Tesla is not only attracting consumers with a budget of $50,000, they're still attracting consumers with a budget of $70,000. There's no other alternative. Tesla has a monopoly, the vastly superior EV on the market, for whatever price it is. I know people worth tens of millions of dollars who drive Model 3s and Ys. Yet if they had an ICE car, they would have probably bought some AMG Mercedes or something along those lines. That would have cost significantly more. But they wanted a high-tech electric car, and Tesla is the best. Tesla doesn't attract people who want to buy cars within certain budgets. They attract consumers who want to buy within that budget and above, because there's nothing else above them. Okay, sure, aside from arguably a Model S and X, or maybe a Porsche Taycan, depending on personal preference. But that Porsche is a lot more expensive than a Model 3. Do you see? A Tesla is for anyone who wants them. Anyone who wants to experience an EV with the best tech. You can't get any better, no matter how much more money you have. Tesla will always be the best EV with the most advanced technology. And okay, perhaps Lucid is better in some ways, in some luxury items, but again, I think it's more personal preference. But not many people can afford a Lucid anyway. The other side of Tesla's infinite demand is Elon talking about how elastic the demand is, and that whenever they lower prices, they're surprised as to how much more demand there is, and have to remember that even with the price drops and the tax credits, a Model 3 is still too expensive for most people. It still costs more than a Corolla too. Teslas are still priced in the higher end of the market. But from this stage now, at their current prices, if Tesla are able to lower their costs and pass the savings on to consumers, Tesla hits some really large pockets of demand. Of course, it's a little harder right now with interest rates as high as they are, which does also increase the cost of ownership somewhat too. Then when you factor in the other savings like no fuel, a Tesla does start to look a lot more affordable. And this is part of the reason the demand is more elastic, because the price drop is higher relative to the cost of ownership, due to a lower cost of ownership. Yes, admittedly, infinite demand is a strong statement, and somewhat impossible by the definition, but I think the point is, there is a very elastic demand, and consumers are also willing to buy a Tesla even if they can afford something more expensive. Similar to an iPhone perhaps, there's plenty of people who could justify spending even $3,000 on a phone, but there's nothing available at that price, so they just buy an iPhone. And for any high-end luxury mobile phones, then they just don't have the economies of scale of the technology that Apple do. Just like for EVs. If there was something at that price, it wouldn't have the same economies of scale in technology that Tesla has. Now, the Model Ys from the new factories are obviously using new, lower-cost manufacturing techniques, and eventually lower-cost cells and batteries. And this is going to be what it takes to increase the demand further, as they increase supply. Even if they come out with FSD or other features, there are simply a lot of people who cannot afford these vehicles, no matter how much they want one. FSD will of course increase demand somewhat in itself as well, as it is another reason to buy a Tesla over anything else. But FSD will not be cheap, and you could be into $60,000 including the car. That would not be affordable for many people, so I think Tesla's subscription model will be popular. The reality is quite simple. Tesla can increase demand by reducing their prices. Sure, like many other companies too, except Tesla are going to absolute extremes in order to achieve this, with vertical integration, rethinking manufacturing, and even robot labour. And as we said, that when Tesla lowers their prices, it doesn't lower the brand value and make the product perceived as cheap, i.e. it doesn't affect the demand so much of the prestigious buyer, despite the price being lower. They could buy a more expensive EV, even like a Ford Mach-E, compared to a Model Y, except they're getting an inferior car, less range, performance, features. It would be like if Mercedes lowered the prices below Volkswagen, but you still want to spend more and get a Volkswagen. You may think this is somewhat presumptuous, as history has shown the opposite. For example, when Ford got the Model T price so low, he assumed everyone would want one. But there were plenty of consumers who could afford more, and did, because they wanted something nicer, something more to their tastes or requirements. But I think that is where Tesla differs, as it is technology. You can't just spend more on the car itself and make it better than a Tesla. You can buy a more expensive battery and get more range and performance, but you can't buy more expensive cameras and chips that result in better FSD. It is the investment in the technology itself that is able to roll out at mass scale that is unbeatable for the competition. And yes, sure, plenty of people will want something different than a Tesla too. But they're making sacrifices of spending more on an inferior product because perhaps status is more important to them and they want to buy a Porsche. So a lot of this infinite demand is the infinite pursuit in lowering cost of vehicles, and Tesla are investing billions and billions over years in order to achieve this. We have the 4680 cells, which may finally ramp up next year and start contributing to some major cost savings. We have the Gen 3 manufacturing techniques, along with Gen 3 vehicle, and a plethora of other future cost-saving techniques and processes that we were shown on Investor Day. Tesla will be relentless in implementing all these. Discovering lower-cost alternatives of mining and refining lithium, moving over the 48-volt system, parallel unbox production, lower-cost motors, and everything else, over time it all adds up here and there, despite such gargantuan efforts. But with the level of economies of scale that Tesla has, it becomes worth it. The Model Y is meant to become the biggest selling car in the world, but I think most of you would agree this is not going to be true, as we would expect Tesla's Gen 3 low-cost car to outsell the Model Y by a significant amount. And when you think about it, the potential economies of scale that you can achieve from one model selling so many, well, it reminds me of when Ford was selling the Model T and managed to get the price down to about $260 over 15 years from $860 prior, selling around 2 million units a year. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.